Hey, worship teams, welcome back to the Worship Team Hangout. We are so glad that you're here with us today, and we have a special day. We're coming to you live also through Meerkat, so if you're on Twitter and you see the Meerkat, or hashtag Meerkat, you can find us there, Worship Team Training. But wow, we are excited to have you with us again for an awesome special show about songwriting. We can't get enough of it. Today is May the 13th, 2015. And again, you're watching worshipteamtraining.com, our season 3, Psalms, Hymns, and Spiritual Songs. Today, special guest, Ross King. And also, we want to say thank you for all of you guys that hang out with us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Google, Facebook, Pinterest. I mean, who knows how many others are there out there. And we wanted to say thank you guys for subscribing to us and always faithfully tuning in, and also sending us your emails and comments and questions. So we really do appreciate that. You can hit us up today if you got a question about today's show at WorshipTP or hashtag WorshipTeamHangout. Check it out. This coming up month, we have John Manna, who leads worship drummer, and also Joshua Martin, who's also with worship drumming. He has his own ministry, Joshua does, and be looking out for that. Also, coming up this weekend, Rhode Island, we're coming to you, baby, so make sure that you're with us May 15th, 16th. That's this Friday and Saturday over at First Assembly of God Woonsocket. And if you're in the Providence area, we'd love to have you come out. So please come out and join us. It's a lot of fun for you and your worship team. You can find us at itickets.com, Worship Team Training, May 15th, 16th. And don't forget, next Tuesday, Sally Morgenthaler, live. That's going to be a special webinar. We already have over 150 worship leaders signed up. And this is a free webinar. It's called The Pastor Problem. Again, it's not so much about our pastors, but it's about each of us who pastor our ministry. What are the problems that we go through as ministers? So without further ado, today we want to introduce our special guest. Also be in prayer for Tim Timmons, Tony Guerrero, as those guys are handling other matters. Both Tim and Stephanie are traveling, and Swift and Tony has got some studio and work stuff going on, so we pray for them. But we are excited to have Ross King. Ross, actually, he and I go back a few years, and we did a worship conference together. And I know, Ross, you remember that. And we also are friends with some of the same guys. Todd Agnew is a really cool dude. He's been around for quite a while, too. But Ross King, he's been a full-time songwriter, worship leader, performer since, you guessed it, 1995. Maybe you didn't guess that, 1995 kind of dates us. But his songs have been recorded over 150 times. But check it out, because he's been with writing songs with Newsboys, Todd Agnew again, Jimmy Needham, North Point Community Church, the Village Church, Jenny Simmons, a lot of great names. Also, Austin Stone Church, that's here in Austin, Texas, and also with Liberty University. He's got several independent albums as well, and also has sold about 45,000 CDs. I don't even know if I can count that high. And as well as he has been on Simpleville Music / Fairtrade Services. And you can find his new recordings titled Unfettered, that just released here in May 2015. And also the last record, This Hope Will Guide Me. You can find his music at rosskingmusic.com. So without any further ado, please give a warm Worship Team Training welcome to Ross King. Ross, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks, Brandon.
Awesome, man. It's great to have you today. Thanks for your time.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. It's been a long, few years. We did a workshop together over in Sugar Land. That's where we first met. Billy Foote was there, and some other guys were there. And I don't remember. It's kind of like a blur. So for you too, it's been a long while. But gosh, it's so great to see you. And so things are going well for you, right?
Yeah, things are going really well.
That's good. So the new album, we're going to get to that in a little bit. But we have a lot of worship teams that are focused on, and worship songwriters that are focused on today's topics. So let's jump into that. Songwriting that matters. Our last episode, we delve in a little bit with Dwayne Moore. Awesome guy. He's going to be back with us by the end of the month. Just FYI, folks. But today we talk about songwriting. And songwriting for the church does matter because what we say and what we do does make a difference in how we say it. Most importantly, what does that mean to the congregation? So that's our first question right here. Ross, tell us, what makes a good song for worship and why is it important?
Great, man. It's huge question, and we don't have enough time to answer it exhaustively. But
yeah,
I think I would start by just putting a banner of like context over that. So I would say that every worship leader should sing the songs that are right for their context, right? So you've led a lot, I know, and I've led for years. And man, I have had so many times when a song moved me or I saw it move in some other context and I loved it. I brought it into my context and it just didn't work, you know, or it took off immediately in another context. And in mine, it took several times of leading, you know, and that can be everything from, you know, a song kind of has a need to be an anthem in a big room and you're in a small room, or it's an intimate type song and you're in a really big room, those kinds of things. And so I would always probably, this sounds like fence riding, but I would always back up and put a wide lens on it and say, context is everything, right? Or it's at least a lot. Because you can have obvious answers like, does it have good doctrine? Is the melody singable? You know, all those things that I think you and I think are pretty intuitive. I hope are intuitive to most worship leaders. And we could get into some of those mechanical things for sure. But I think even that stuff's hard to do because I would have said 5 years ago, man, if you'd asked me, I'd have said, well, there certainly shouldn't be a bunch of octave jumping in a song, right?
And we have no shortage of that.
And we have no shortage of octave jumping now. So I would have said, well, that's crazy. You don't jump an octave in the middle of a song.
Yeah.
And so I would have been wrong, clearly, because that's happening and it's working in some places and we can have our opinions about it, but it is working. So I really would just say things like, you need to figure out what your people need to sing and what matters to them to sing. I have a group of people that when I lead at my home church tend to be a little bit more intellectual and kind of slow to ramp up, you know? So when I hit the ground running with a brand new, really, really upbeat rock and roll song, it takes a while, you know? Whereas the sort of mid-tempo 80 beats per minute stuff, they eat it up, you know? Or a really introspective song, they would eat it up, you know? And so I know that probably sounds vague, so you might want to give me some follow-ups, but I just really want to say to people that context matters tremendously, you know, that we can't just take a one-size-fits-all approach to what's a great song. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think, well, rather what I love what you said is context. And I think that is a huge word because for a long time, I've been a huge believer of, yeah, like you, the song worked great at maybe the other church we were worshiping at last week or even a conference. And I think that gets a lot of people, a lot of worship guys in the crux of how to introduce and how to do good songs because they have heard it elsewhere. And then they beat their heads against the wall because they can't figure out, why does this not work in my church?
Right.
And I think what you said exactly is the context part. Right. And I think if we were to keep in mind, like, you know, who is singing in our church? Like for instance, just last week, I mean, it's not a new song that's out, but, you know, Alive, Young and Free. Mm-hmm. When I first heard the song, just like you, I thought, oh, octave switching, you know, not a good thing for a certain key for women. And I thought, you know, our women singers are going to not like doing that. But then we found the key that kind of worked. And the more and more I listened to the song and also thinking about it as far as from a biblical perspective, I thought, you know, it probably could work. So I asked our drummer, because our drummer is fantastic. She's a musician. She's not just a drummer, just great person. Mm-hmm. And I asked Naomi, hey, by the way, do you think our church can sing this song? And you know, we actually took a week to think about it instead of just trying to do it. And I just high-fived Naomi for doing that, because if we didn't take our time and we just thought, no, we can go ahead and just plow right into it. Or, you know, Ross, if we were to write a song, and we were to think, yeah, well, the church will love this.
Right.
and it may just fall flat on its face, and then you may bring it somewhere else and it may work fine. So it's like, so let me ask you that question too. How has that worked for you? Have you been in a situation where you've done one song somewhere and then you've done it in another place, or maybe back at your own church, and it just fell flat on its face?
Absolutely. I mean, and I rather than answer that question with a specific story, I would say it like this. One of the things that's really weird is worship is in the radio culture now, right? So there are songs that if you bring them brand new, and I'm doing air quotes, brand new to your people, they may have already heard it a number of times on the radio or in their own, whatever their own, ways of hearing music are. And then you might have a song that's brand new, truly, because you wrote it, or someone wrote it, or you, whatever, it's truly new. And they're equally good songs, perhaps, but they're just not going to take off the same way, because the one that's already gotten some groundswell, it's got some momentum because of the radio thing, that one's going to pick up quicker, and then you can have your own song and be like, well, that just fell flat. And it may be an inferior song, or it may be that you have to really, you don't have that momentum of the radio, kind of the wind at your back, and that's hard, and you have to just, and that's probably gets into one of the later questions, but figuring out how to introduce songs that you wrote is difficult. But for sure there are problems with, you go lead a song at a college conference and it's a more college, it's maybe more of a young and free or a passion, and it goes over fantastic. Then you go to do some kind of a men's retreat where a bunch of men are emotional. I mean, I did a men's retreat about a month ago, and I disclaimed Forever Rain and said, guys, this song says I'm running to your arms. And none of you want to say that naturally, but you're all either dads, or you had a dad, or you have a dad, and all of you desire to be in the arms of your dad. At some point that mattered to you, and you desire to bring your own children in your arms. So that idea isn't a wrong thing for you to sing. It's just not natural. It's a very sort of feminine, traditionally, way to talk. But we made it work. And once I disclaimed it like that and kind of dared them to defy me, sort of, it worked great. But that's a kind of thing I think that we get into with the context thing. I mean, different ages, different. If you were to sing for certain cultures, Asian cultures, or sometimes worship-wise can be a little bit more somber and more chanty in the way that they sing, versus you might be in a Latino culture, they'd be more celebrative. It just, those things can kind of happen, rich white folks can stand there with their arms crossed, it's a weird thing, and so context matters tremendously. That's
true. Well, we have surprisingly in our church, like many other churches today, we have a very growing Hispanic population. So we're more multicultural and less Caucasian in our church than at least more than any churches that I've been in. And I love the Hispanic culture. I have a heart for that. Part of our family is also Hispanic. So I have a deep love, and I understand where they're at. They're very embracing with worship, but yet, the same thing. I've led worship with Chinese cultures, and you're right. It's just very somber. It's because it's just a different world. And so how we introduce songs, like to tackle that second question, the context part, I think that's huge. What would you say about how do we introduce a newly written song? What are some of the best, you can't say proven ways because there's no right way, but what's worked for you?
Chorus first, do that chorus down. That's a real practical thing, but I will always, I'll always start with, here's what the song is about. I'll give, really, really brief, just sort of a explanation where we're headed with the song, and then I'll sing that chorus one or two times, just me on the acoustic or the piano or whatever, let them get it, and then break into the to the whole song. I mean, some of this gets into, and we don't have time for this conversation, but some of this gets into, if you're in a church that has a lot of cues and
Yeah.
here's how much time you have, and there's a video service coming on in exactly these many minutes. Some of that's going to be harder. You know, I'm at a church where none of that's a problem, but there's so much of that going on,
Right.
that introducing a new song in a context where you have 24 minutes, you know, and this has to happen in 24 minutes or whatever, that gets hard. So I'm speaking probably to the more open-ended, freer environment.
Sure.
And in that environment, I would say brief explanation, you know, of what you're trying to say. Scripture or not, that's up to you. I wouldn't want to just shoehorn one in just to sound spiritual, but if you got one that really inspired it, great. And then I would like I said, I would sing that chorus a couple of times, and then I would of course do that song. This is always my policy.
Mm-hmm.
I do it if I'm in a month, you know, I do 2 in a row.
Yeah.
Then a week off from it, then a third week of it out of the 4, and then I wait a few weeks and come back. Does that make sense? So I do it 3 times out of 4 when I introduce it.
That's good.
You know, unless I just feel super insecure that it just bombed one of those first 2 times.
Right.
And that's probably my issue.
Right. That's good. I think that familiarity is definitely the key.
Yeah.
And the more that we make familiarity comfortable for our churches, the better they're going to sing it. I'll speak to the high production type services where you only, like what you said, Ross, you only have 20 minutes. Some of the best ways that we found is just to maybe use that new song as the introduction, even before people come in. You can do that when you're not on the clock. The same thing.
Yeah, so that they have a sense of familiarity with the song without being committed to it. That's great.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, a lot of churches will do an offertory song.
Yeah.
You know, there's a church that I lead at sometimes that does an offertory, and I'll introduce a song there because the level of, hey, you need to sing along is lower. You know, the plate's going around or whatever, and you don't have to sing. Sorry, I interrupted you, but I love that idea.
You did interrupt me, but that's okay. Tony's not here, so you're kind of like playing Tony without knowing it.
Oh, I get to be 2 people. This is awesome.
Tony, well, no, don't be 2 people.
Oh, okay.
Just be you.
I was going to be angry me and happy me.
That's a different show. Anyway, so other ways that we can think about the songwriting and how to introduce that is important. Last question. What do you say to encourage worship songwriters of today?
Co-write. I would say it's huge. And there's a whole other show or series of shows about that, because there's learning how to defer, learning when not to defer.
That's awesome.
Learning how to not be so precious about it.
Right.
You know, those kinds of things. So co-writing, I would say, and here's where I'm going to give you like kind of a balance, but I would say on the one side of the balance, my goal is to not lead songs I wrote unless they compete at a quality level. Compete's a bad word, but unless they are up to the quality, I would like for my songs to fit seamlessly with the Hillsongs and all that.
Right.
At least in my context, maybe not anywhere, but they in my context fit seamlessly.
Right.
But I also think there's freedom for your people to be introduced to you, and they're grading you on a curve a little bit, because you and I both know if you sit in a sermon and listen to Francis Chan, well, Francis Chan is awesome, but he better be, because I don't know Francis. But if I would have come and hear you speak, I know you. So a little bit, so I don't have to have you be as good as Francis Chan. Does that make sense? So I think your church can feel the same way. They could say, yeah, this is one of Ross's songs, and that's clear, you know, but we love Ross, and we are part of this journey with him. So, but my goal would always be to not be throwing out my songs in such a way that everyone was like, oh, that's clearly one of Ross's songs because it's the one we just sang. You know, you don't want that to be this interrupted kind of distracting thing. And if you can't get there, co-write and get critiques and pray and read books about, you know, I mean, I know that sounds silly, but learning your craft is a big thing.
No, it's true. I want to speak into that because I'm a huge believer of education, and it can be done on many different levels. But I think we have this this air with people today that the novices are the experts, and I really just have a difficult time with that, because there's so much in, like what you just said, when you co-write with somebody, when you do read a book, or you're inspired by somebody else, or you learn more about your craft, you're intaking all this education. So it's not just well, God gave this to me and that's it. And now the other side of that,
that's a trump card, right? God gave me this, so you can blame God for these bad lyrics.
We blame God all the time. We don't know it. And the other thing is, like what you just said, when we do introduce a song, a new song that we wrote, it is important that there is a quality of the heart. I mean, there is a quality of the craft that needs to be there, but there also needs to be the quality of the heart. Because I know if I write a song, like what's really cool is I'm looking forward to writing with you, because Ross and I talked about that. So that's a really cool thing. Will come out later. But what's great is that we learn how to quantify the song itself and to make it as good as we can get it, but it still has to have the heart behind it. And, it's like what David said, we don't want to bring our offering where it's just half of what it is supposed to be. And David said that he would not offer a blemished sacrifice to God. And I think that is true with songwriting today. We can't just dump it on the church and expect them just to take it and say, oh, well, we'll give them a clap because that's great hard effort. I really believe that, the quality's got to be there, but the heart, when you look at David's heart, he would not accept anything that was not praiseworthy or unexcellent to God. And so there's that balance of, what's good on a quality level, but what's greater on a heart level, because if we're expecting others to receive that, they're going to be singing those words back. And if it's with a bad melody, or the words don't sound right, or they don't go well together, then we run into the issue of, well, how does that build the church? Ross, you want to speak into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really an interesting point, because one of the things I noticed when I started about 5 years ago going out to Nashville to write sort of more with the publisher and all that, is I noticed so many times I'd go in the room with a great writer, but not a worship leader maybe, but just a great writer, and come out with a really good song that was a worship song, but that wasn't a good worship song. And that sounds strange, but all the parts were there. It had a really strong melody because this person's a great writer. The lyrics were solid because we worked on them, and we're both professionals or whatever. But it just didn't have that. I didn't have any desire to go to my church and lead that, and that's that intangible thing you're talking about, that heart thing. I don't think that Here I Am to Worship or Mighty to Save are really fantastic melodies. They're good,
right?
But they're not. There's something. Those are amazing songs that work all the time, even after they're old. In every context I've ever been in. But I don't know why. I don't know why they're great, right? And I've written songs that I felt like were really great melodies, and the other person thought they were great melodies, and my publisher thought they were a great melody, and every one of us agreed about the words, but it just was lacking something. And that's a judgment call that you have to make. And again, it can be context. Maybe that song would have worked somewhere else. I don't know, but it never worked, for me. And I think I can't really put any kind of a measurement on that, because I don't know how to tell you when a song is great. But we ought to be people who sense and work hard to sense and discern when a song works, irrespective of its quality. But also on the flip side, to not just do songs that emotionally grab people, knowing that something about the song is off. You and I both had seen songs that just blew the doors off a place, and you and I looked through the lyrics and thought, well, there's a lot of problems in the lyrics of that song, right? So I don't know if that's what you're getting at, but that it's really weird how that quality thing, that it factor, that X factor, it exists in worship songs too.
And that it factor is hard to nail down, and it's something that we can't really predict on our own. That's where we do involve the Lord in that songwriting process. Involve the Lord in your leading process, even when you're leading the song. I always just pray before I lead, or even as I'm leading, and I just say, like David, Psalm 19, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you. Lord, may this song be pleasing to you. May it touch somebody. And there's been times that I've had experienced God pulling the reins back on me, saying, no, this is not the right time to do.
Right.
And so we got to have that balance and spiritual checkpoint. But again, quality is huge. And I think we as leaders have to really know what we're doing without this haphazard shoot from the hip kind of thing. You can only do that for so long, and people find out that you're not real. But being real is about being who you are, authentic. Anyway, we've ran out of time. I hate to do that, Ross, because we've had such an awesome convo.
Yeah.
Can we have you back for a part 2?
I'd love it.
That'd be cool. We can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, awesome.
It may be a while because it's summer, but I'd love to do it again.
He's like, yeah. We could do a part 2, but it'll be a while.
No, I'm saying that because I don't want you to get mad at me. I love this. I do this all day, but I don't want you to get mad when you call, and I have like 6 weeks before I can get back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not normal, but right now, just with summer coming up, I'm pretty slammed.
That's awesome.
I would love to. I'm really honored and blessed to do this.
Awesome. Well, Ross, I look forward to what the Lord does through us and our partnering with songwriting. And guys,
I love that.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool. And more on that later, you guys. So Ross, thank you so much again for your time being with us today. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Brandon.
Yeah, you bet, man. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We love your comments, emailing into us, and hashtagging. We just love that. Thank you so much, because it helps us understand more about you and what you're going through. We're a team all together as the church. So when we think about church, we also need to include worship team, and what are we doing to edify the church at large through our songwriting, through our leading, most of all, our relationships that go beyond the churches that we lead in worship. So guys, thanks for being with us. Be sure to check out at the end of this month, we're going to have Dwayne Moore come back for part 2. And also we have worshipdrummer.org and also Joshua, the other drummer from Nashville. So we're going to have like a drum type, maybe a drum off would be kind of cool. What do you think of that? Just an idea there. And also we're going to have Ross come back for part 2 as well. So guys, thanks so much for joining us here. Worship Team Hangout. Be sure to join us back at worshipteamtraining.com and check out our mentoring programs. If you want to learn more about the art of leading, songwriting, and worship, discover us at worshipteamtraining.com/mentoring, and also check out worshipteamtraining.com, I'm getting confused, /workshops. If you like a workshop to come to your church, or if you want to have this guy come to your church, then contact us and let us know. We love to have and to celebrate what God is doing to serve your body. So thanks so much. We pray for your church, your worship team. May God's blessings flow, and we'll see you back on the next Worship Team Hangout. Blessings.